That's fantastic, Steve. How unassuming of you, mate. Well done. It's great to see someone just going for it, and finding a niche. And geez, how fantastic that you're here, mate. I can't wait to hear how much progress you've made by next year. And I'll just start a question with you now too, because we'll bring Scott and Ben back up. What do you think is the maximum potential for your product in Australia? How many units?
This vehicle is primarily designed for underground.
Mm-hmm.
And in underground mines, there's probably about 2,500 vehicles that it could replace. Now, we're not the only one that's producing an electric light vehicle for mining. Ours is at the heavier end of that, but that's the maximum sort of in Australia. So we do see a lot of opportunity for export as well.
Fantastic. Yep. I can certainly say that Pitt and Sherry here in Launceston are redoing the Beaconsfield gold mine. Well worth the call. I'll get Scott and Ben to just mic up too. Gents, let's go with Ben first, because I know he's chomping at the bit to address this. What's the next 6 to 12 months look like, Ben? Despite the tax regimes that we're looking at, what do you think will happen in the next 6 to 12?
Oh, look, I think a couple of weeks ago was probably a more buoyant answer, to be fair. But look, I think the market's continuing, the trends are continuing. For us, from a specific product point of view, we'll see the E+ come through, which will be fantastic. And so I think over the next 6 to 12, we should start seeing more vehicles and more sales in the market and more development. There's lots of really exciting announcements around charging infrastructure. And so there's lots of activity starting to happen. It's probably not anywhere near as coordinated in some elements as we would have liked. And then, of course, there's the kind of background noise that threatens to tip some of it over from the announcements we've seen, in South Australia and Victoria. But again, there's a flurry of activity and development happening, but we are starting to step into a slightly murkier water than we were expecting a few weeks ago.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Of course, it seems to me that every year we do this, we hear the same thing about towing a caravan and packing up the family for the weekend, which gets debunked year in, year out, except by Barnaby trying to stick a lump of coal into a charging port. Question come in from a young man called Bryce. What do you reckon? Are we allowed to be towing trailers, Scott?
Can you still hear me?
No, but mate, you look good like that. You're welcome to one. We're happy to look at you if you want us to. It's all about from the shoulders up, I think, Scott. We want your brains. Don't let Ben answer it. You know how competitive they are, those boys at Nissan. Steve's going to say, yeah, sure, we can tow anything. Brazil, hola. How you going, Scott? The question actually says, despite Hyundai saying just do not recommend towing, our Kona Electric does an excellent job towing a camper trailer with a tow bar made for the petrol Kona. What do you think, Scott? Are you brave enough, or are you just going to be?
I've just actually jumped back online now. I haven't heard any of the question, but I believe it was about towing.
Yeah, what do you reckon? Is the product right? Are we allowed to tow yet, or should we still?
From our vehicles, we don't recommend towing just yet. There's more work to be done around what happens with towing, and also the battery and how that affects the range of the vehicles. Yeah. But as someone who owns a boat that weighs 1.5 tons, I'd love to be able to tow with an EV, and we'll work hard for that into the future. And it's something that's very much on our mind at HMCA here in Australia, and we're working hard with our engineers overseas to make sure that the vehicles into the future have that capability. It is required. This is Australia, of course, so we tow everything. So we'll definitely keep working on that for our zero-emission vehicles.
Fantastic, well done. Ben, there's one here for you too. Why is the Leaf E Plus 62 kilowatts per hour only available as a grey import? Will Nissan Australia provide support for the grey import in the future?
So the 62 kilowatt will be coming imported by Nissan Australia. So we're adding that vehicle to our lineup, and so we'll have that as an option through our 90 EV dealers across the country next year. So absolutely excited to add that to the 40 kilowatt hour that's currently on sale. So it's coming. We're aware that there's a grey import market, of course, but we're obviously very focused on expanding the lineup through our genuine channel.
Yeah, fantastic. Steve Durkin will be very happy to know that there's not a single question coming in except, woohoo, tough choice now, Cybertruck or Bortana. So you're generating some activity. I know you said when we first started that it wasn't a sales pitch, but people are commenting just how good you are at just getting a complex message across, your brilliant design. Any EV that can survive in that environment, they want one, engineering design critical. So, Nissan and Hyundai are sitting there in the background thinking, what was the phone number of that place in Brazil? Kidding. Ben, I'm
on Google right now.
Yes. So Scott's actually muted so that he can be doing some corporate research.
Yeah, I'm typing away.
I'll go one more, Scott. Next 2, 5, 10 years, where do you think Hyundai will be in 2, 5, and 10 years' time for the consumers that are listening?
Yeah, it's no secret that Hyundai's got big ambitions to be a global leader when it comes to zero-emission vehicles, and having the amount of vehicles that I mentioned, the 44 between now and 2025 globally, gives us a really good platform to be able to aim towards that. And we know countries are going to ban the sale of internal combustion engines. So if you're not working on this now, you'll be buying the technology from a manufacturer that is. So we're in a great position for both EV and hydrogen fuel cell for both heavy and light vehicles. And we'll continue to look at opportunities here in Australia to bring as much product in as we can.
Yep. You'll still be there in 10 years' time celebrating, of course?
Definitely.
Yeah.
We've had 120 years of the evolution of the internal combustion engine. It's just the beginning for zero-emission vehicles. So myself and Ben have got a lot of work to do in the future, and we'll keep plugging away with guys like Sam at Tesla and Tim at ChargeFox and Bayhad and all the guys on this line today. Everyone on the...
I'll finish that off for you, Scott. Yeah, everyone on this call, you back? You're just buffering a bit, Scott. Try again. Get the kids to stop using their apples. Just broke up there again. Repeat, Scott.
Can you hear me now?
Got you perfectly. 10-100.
Excellent. Great. Imagine we get to have connectivity with our mobile network as good as it is in the cars.
Yep, mate. Keep going.
Yeah, so we're really excited about the future and working close with all our partners, both in the charging industry, the energy industry, and also across the associations to try and make this happen. And one of the things I will say is that we want competition. We can have as many cars here as we want, and we'd love them to be Hyundai, but we need competition in this market. We need more manufacturers than just ourselves and Nissan. Working hard with EVs and Tesla. We need as many manufacturers we can here as possible, because the more choice, the more consumer awareness, the more consideration to purchase, and then we start seeing the politicians taking more note of what the consumers want. There'll be more investment in infrastructure, and this is what we need to make the change, is get the conversations out there. And everyone on this session today are advocates for the technology. You wouldn't be here if you weren't.
Spot on. And I reckon when Steve Durkin takes over the old Ford factory in Geelong and starts pumping these things out big time, then someone will pay attention. Steve, speaking about the next 2, 5 and 10, where do you see your company moving in 2, 5 and 10 years?
So our focus is obviously the underground space initially, but it is road registerable. So there are a whole host of applications where a vehicle with this load carrying capacity as an electric vehicle would make sense. A lot of them are government type things and utilities. But next year, we're planning to do a prototype of a vehicle that's more for that surface environment, where we'll have, 400 plus kilometres of range and, much more power, and it'll be something that'll be more appropriate for the four-wheel drive enthusiast. So that probably won't come out until 2022, but it is on the chain. So yeah, we expect to be in the same category as a Cybertruck, for example, but we'll be out here 2 or 3 years before then.
Yep, and Aussie made, and Aussie configured, and Aussie jobs, mate. Well done. Jobs and growth. Woo! How exciting, and it's so good for you to turn up and to speak so clearly. I mean, Scott and Ben have done this hundreds and hundreds of times before, but the comments are here that you've just got it across in such a simple and easy way. and we look forward to seeing that becoming a recreational vehicle, mate. That is not the holy grail, but when you look at the sales of RVs and SUVs, it's clearly Australians still like the great outdoors, and you're going to bring them 400 kilometres of range. Ben, how's things going with the government? I heard Scott say that the two of you work together, not in collusion, of course, but it's us against them. Do you still find it's that way?
Oh, look, I think there's different pockets. I think generally, there's a lot of really positive, proactive things happening out there. The one thing that I would say is the piece that makes it really difficult to contextualize all of the moving pieces is that overarching direction about what we want to achieve, right, as a country. So we see all of these really cool positive announcements now. The UK, we're gonna ban by 2040. Actually, we can do it sooner, so it's 2035. Actually, you know what? 2030 is probably where it's at. So other jurisdictions are making these bold calls, are starting to take action, and are finding that it's easier than they first thought. That's probably the bigger thing here. We need an overarching objective, a framework, a direction, which in itself isn't policy, it isn't legislation necessarily, but what it does is inform all of those other directions and all those other things. And it provides certainty to the market, it unlocks private equity, so people are willing to invest because they can see the path. And it puts into context all of these other kind of side issues, like the road user charge. If we've got an overarching directive about what we're going to achieve, we've got a framework to measure it against. And it means that, we start thinking about the way we tax things, right? We tax stuff because we need to pay for stuff. But tax the stuff you don't want people to really do, and you incentivize the things you do want them to do. And that requires, that big picture, which that's probably the piece I think that common goal, common direction that we're probably missing, that we're seeing as a starting point in those other markets.
Yeah, beautifully said, mate. I don't know.
To follow up,
Go on, Scott.
Yeah, to follow up Ben's comments, we have seen some really great moves from governments around Australia as well. I mean, some of the money that's coming up in the Future Fuels Fund, that's $95.4 million for charging infrastructure and to try and get fleet deployment ramped up. The states, some of the states are doing some great things. And then you've got local governments. I can't wrap local governments enough. Some of our biggest fleet buyers have been people like Moreland Council in Victoria, Canterbury Bankstown Council here in New South Wales. There are some real gems around Australia. There's 537 different councils in Australia, each with their own fleet purchasing policy. And once they take EVs on, whether it be ourselves or it's Ben's EVs, they heavily brand them and heavily wrap them to talk about what the council's doing with green energy. Then the people in the community become aware of that energy. And then most times, like Moreland and Canterbury both put in free charging for the public. So it's a win-win for everyone. So a massive congratulations to the councils. And the federal guys have got some good things happening as well. We're all eagerly awaiting the national EV strategy, which will believe should be early next year now. COVID's impacted a lot of things, and we're not going to jump on people for that. But we're looking forward to have that and having some national consistency. We want to be doing things as manufacturers across the country in a consistent manner. We don't want to be doing different things to suit different markets. The tech's coming. Let's just get on with it and do it in a way that's going to attract more manufacturers to bring their vehicles here.
Vote 1, Ben and Scott for Parliament. There is a comment here, of course, about the great towing revolution. You're not worried about less range with towing, but insurance and legality is different in different states of Australia. But it's still the same with petrol. The range is reduced. Steve, we're here talking about new models, and we've got two of the world's leading manufacturers and their excellent representatives. And up pops a question that says, will there be a 7 or 8-seater Bortana? And obviously there's 2 councils you don't need to ring now, but the other 537 are open targets.
Yeah, good question. At this stage, we're not planning for a 7 or 8-seater, but we are planning for a 10 or 12-seater.
Wow, even more. And what about you guys? Obviously, Steve's vehicle will run yours over on the footpath or while you're charging for free. But Scott, Ben, do you have plans to go with people movers and EVs, or have you already got them and we just haven't seen them? Because my Facebook feed is just new brands all day, every day.
Yeah, we've certainly got product coming through the pipe, and there's some stuff available globally. that we just don't see here today. So like the ENV200 vans available in the UK in a 5 and a 7 seat configuration as well. Unfortunately, it's not a product that we've got here at the moment through our channels, but we're working pretty hard on that. And then as we expand products and EVs get bigger, typically they start as small cars, and over life we're now seeing small SUVs, and they're going to continue to get bigger. So we are going to start to see bigger cars, more seating configurations, be it pure electric, the e-power concept that I spoke about before. There's a heap of different options that'll come through over time.
Yeah, fantastic. And if you've seen the earlier presentations, you'll be very happy to know you're not alone. It's not just the manufacturers that are having to do all the heavy lifting. Scott, what about yourself?
Yeah, from our perspective, there's plenty of product coming through, and obviously we have vans and other size vehicles, larger SUVs with bigger occupant capacity on the market now, and can't keep selling that if you haven't got the technology. So if you want to keep getting good volumes globally, you've got to meet what requirements around the globe, and customers are going to demand it, especially markets that get rid of internal combustion. People still have families to load up and put them out. So watch this space.
Yep, fantastic. I was being facetious, of course. People who drive Steve's vehicles will drive very carefully and safely, of course. And just some feedback for the three of you when you're considering your next presentation. This in from David. For someone starting this EV exploration, these presentations are clear, exciting and impressive. Thank you. So Scott, mate, Montel is the company powering my internet speed today, 135 megs up per second, and highly recommend Montel. I can, because no one's looking, announce the government's new tool to measure the EV tax, and you might have seen it before, everything old is new again. It is in inches, and if we're going to self-report and self-regulate, we've done that so well in the past that, $11.73 probably isn't a big tax to pay. I just don't understand, and neither does anybody else that's been here today. Why would we bring in a tax in now? Wait till everyone's got one and then tax them. The Roman Empire didn't really bring in a chariot tax to pay for the roads. They built the roads first, then taxed you. What's going on here? Are we like the Roman Empire fiddling, or, are we watching a failed civilization for bringing out something so insane? When you look at the 48 speakers today and the jobs, one guy was talking about 1 million jobs involved in what you're all doing. And that's just mind-boggling that we would repress it. Yeah, out of Ballarat, Ben. Be a good guy for some research to grab it, and probably for yourself too, Steve and Scott. Closing comments, Steve, if you had your time again, would you do it the same way? Faster, harder, quicker?
We go as fast as we can, but we only bite off as much as we can chew at a time. I'm really happy with the way that it's progressing. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the logo in the background too, man. I reckon that's a big seller. And I won't use the joke about what's on the outside of a porcupine or an echidna. Ben, what about yourself? Steady as she goes from here, or exciting times?
I think we're at the start. Really, it's going to grow pretty quickly from here, and there's lots of local opportunities across the industry. So, we manufacture parts for every Leaf sold around the world right here in Melbourne. So there's plenty of examples of inventory of industry, jobs, growth, all of those pithy things we like to put on the flyer that are right here about EVs.
Yep, fantastic. Well done. And Scott, you back with us?
Yeah, we're back with you now. Yeah, we're very happy with where we are now, and we're confident with where the market's going to head. It's always, these things will pop up about taxes and charges, and the next federal election is 18 months away. So we'll start preparing for that, and just make sure we've got a really good narrative that this is the future. People are embracing it.
Yep, the research confirms with you, Scott, that most
purchase consideration for EVs in the last couple of years, and research has gone through the roof. So I know.
Yep, you're just breaking up a little bit there, but I think we got the gist of it too. You're right. I've got the research on my computer, no doubt. For those of you listening, if you want more, if you want to be part of this, join your local AEVA association. It's cheap to join. Today would have been half price. And then you've got the experience and knowledge from a group of other people. Gents, I've just had the last comment come through. Great prezos, guys. We knew you would do a great job, and I can hear the crowd cheering and roaring. We're going to take a little break, the late afternoon break, and we're going to be coming back for the session of the century with Giles Parkinson, Robert Llewellyn, Tim Flannery, Behad Jafari, Catherine Tronson, and Chris Nash. So the audience, I can hear applauding. Gentlemen, thank you, and we'll see you back in about 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.